AI is taking over all over in education and all over the world. Artificial intelligence is a tool that is being used to help elevate human production, and it also is changing the face of production and even replacing some jobs. We have an educator today and parent, Tarquinn Curry, who's going to tell us about artificial intelligence and how to prepare our students and our children to make sure they're successful even with advancing technology. Hi, thank you so much for joining the Falling for Learning podcast. We have this podcast to help parents and caregivers with having the resources, strategies, and tools needed to make sure that their children are on track for learning and to stay on track for success. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Curry.
Thank you for having me on the podcast. Appreciate it.
So we first always ask our guest, what is that thing that made you fall in love with learning as a child?
Well, I was always a very curious child, always curious, things around me, something I'd see on the news, something my teacher would say would always spark curiosity. And I was always naturally curious. I always felt like I was more curious than the other kids around me. I was always wondered, and I always felt different because I was into things that the kids my age weren't into. I was into, more, I guess you can say, more mature concepts, I guess you could say. But I was just always interested in the world. And so, my parents always had me reading at an early age. So I always read. And so I was just always a very curious child in general. So that was the spark for everything.
All right. So now when you're saying you had some more advanced or mature kind of interests, can you tell us more?
I was always into history, for one, right? So, okay, I'll give you. So when I was a little kid, I used to live in Louisiana, right? And I have very vivid memories of being a 4-year-old kid living in Louisiana. And, we lived... it was very rural, very small city called Kaplan, Louisiana. And there was the black side and there was the white side. And I remember being aware of that as a young kid, right? And I also remember watching television and the other kids, watching the cartoons and right. And I would focus on the commercials and I would look at the commercials and I would see that all of the positive images of people on the commercials were Caucasian and the negative was black. And I realized this as a 4-year-old, and I thought about that. Right. And I was like, well, why is that? But everyone around me, the kids around me, they're not thinking about that. Right.
Yeah, they're not adult. That's like critical media literacy.
Right. So, I just noticed that and I thought about that, and all through, middle school, high school, I just politics and stuff going on. And I was just curious and I wondered about this and I wondered about that. And so I just always was aware of things going on in the bigger picture as far as things that the adults cared about. Right. And I always felt like the kids my age cared, man, you guys are into just nonsense. Who cares? People would talk about stuff as a middle school. I'm like, I don't care about that. Who cares? Right. And so but you're a middle schooler. Of course you're going to care about that. But I didn't. Right. So I don't know. I was always, I guess, had an old soul in that sense. So that just kind of, led me, in college, and I became a lifelong learner. Right. I was just read and was curious. And once I'm interested in something, I just go hard with it. And I just got to figure it out. And I go down, I can go down a rabbit hole of a topic very easily, and then that'll bring me back to the whole AI topic, So I go down the rabbit hole of things. Well,
okay. And so how did how does those skills, the things you do now, and you're saying AI, you're into AI, and I know you're also an educator. So tell us about that journey, your educational journey to being an educator and getting involved in AI.
So after high school, I went to college. Um, and when I was in college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I love, like I said, I love to learn. And, I was a biology major. I thought I'd be a doctor. And then I switched to history. And then I graduated and I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. And so I started substitute teaching just to make some money. And then people ask me, did you always want to teach? Actually, no, I didn't, and actually was in credential school. So I graduated from college. I substitute taught because I just needed some extra money. And, substitute teaching, first grade, 10th grade, a new class every day. And it was just whatever. Right. And so while I was in credential school, that's when I realized, oh, okay, I'm maybe I can be good at this, because I had some professors telling me that, hey, you know what, you'd make a really good teacher, because discussions we would have about education and different things. And so I'm okay, maybe I'll give it a try. So I got offered a job. So I first started teaching special education, right? So I got a job teaching special education. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll get my special ed credential. So I got my special ed credential and I got my master's in education. And then I realized I didn't like special ed because I felt like it was a lot of politics. And, I just felt like it was a dog and pony show and these kids weren't getting helped. I'm like, I don't like this. The IEPs I felt like it was just a big show and these kids weren't really getting in it. I didn't really like it. So I got out of that. And so I said, okay, because I was a biology major. So, let me try to teach biology. So I got my biology credential. So I became a high school biology teacher. So I taught high school biology for 4 or 5 years out in, Riverside, California, on the Inland Empire area. And that's like people that aren't from LA, that's like 60 miles east of Los Angeles. And then after that, I started teaching middle school life science. So I went from high school biology to middle school life science. And then from that, we moved to Long Beach. Well, I met my wife, Tiffany, and then we moved to the valley. It was called like San Fernando Valley. And then from there, we moved to Long Beach.
Audience members, Tarquinn is Tiffany Curry's husband. So they have their kids. She homeschools the kids, and he's the educator husband that, she talked about on the show. So we're so glad that you're joining us, and we're glad, the power couple has blessed us, our podcast, in more ways than one.
And then I started teaching middle school life science. And then from there, I started teaching that with robotics. So I was asked, hey, can you teach robotics? I'm like, I've never taught robotics. So I went to a course on how to teach robotics. So I just got into teaching robotics. And then I was like, you know what? I just think I would rather teach just robotics. I don't really want to teach science anymore because I was tired of it. I was just, I wanted to teach something that was like practical. And I started seeing how the education system, wasn't preparing these kids.
Okay. Or preparing the kids.
And I just felt like a lot of the stuff that I was teaching within biology wasn't practical,
We go back real quick to the biology. Can you give me an example of something that you're supposed to be teaching in biology that you didn't feel that was practical?
The rock cycle, when I say preparing the kids, right? I get it, right? Certain things you teach kids, right? Like teaching them facts of the different types of rocks. This is an igneous rock. This is a sedimentary rock. And I just felt like teaching these random facts, kids would be like, Mr. Curry, when are we ever going to use this in the real world? And I want to say, you're right, you won't, but I can't tell you that. I got to act like this matters. We all know it doesn't,
Because, yeah, that's okay. Yes. Okay.
And so I said, I love robotics because, they make something and they get a tangible product and the kids it's all hands on. So I just started teaching robotics. And then after teaching robotics for about 4 or 5 years, I started getting into film production. So on the side, I started a videography company because I was always into videography. and storytelling. I just felt as though teaching facts, and I would try not to do it that way, right? But the curriculum, you're forced to, I just felt like we weren't preparing these kids, right? And so my whole thing was like, I want to prepare these kids for the real world, what's they're going to get when they graduate high school. And so I just felt like the curriculum was just, I mean, some of the, I did like biology. We used to do labs. So I used to try to do as many labs as possible because the kids love the hands-on. But they want to do a lab every day. I can't do a lab. I don't have the money or the, resources. So, but with robotics, it was like a lab every day because it was hands-on. Right. And so I started teaching robotics. And then since I was doing the film, I got asked to teach robotics and film. So my principal was like, I'll buy you all this film equipment. And so I taught. So currently, as we speak, I teach robotics and I teach film. So I do film outside of the school for, different nonprofits. I'll make videos. I'll, I've done weddings. I've done a lot of different things. Right. So I have a film company called Silver Eye Films. And so I teach film so in my school, we have a whole film production. We make videos for the school and, it's a whole thing, right? It's a lot, right? So we have a bunch of cameras and I teach the kids how to edit and how to do lighting and storytelling. And we use AI for that as well. I use AI for that. I'll get to the AI piece. And so where AI, I guess, comes in is when, ChatGPT first came out 3 years ago. 3 years ago, 2022, I'm like, oh, I heard someone talking about it. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Like, what is this? And then I start playing with them. Like, oh my goodness, this is going to change everything.
The Rewrite Method and the Rewrite Method Workbook are your go-to resource for helping kids to learn to fall in love with writing. It has the tips, tools, resources, strategies, and skill-building activities to help kids fall out of writing hate and into loving to write. Get your book set today.
This episode is going to include Tiffany's tips. She is a homeschooling mom. She's going to give us some tips about what she does. She's a mom of 3, and we're going to get some tips from her on how to get our children the competitive advantage.
The book is called 30 Million Words, Building a Child's Brain by Dr. Dana Suskin. And then the point is about taking turns. Let's say the example of getting ready to go, right? We could go, oh, I'm going to put my shoes on. I'm going to put my right shoe on. Then I'm going to put my left shoe on. Can you put your shoes on? And then engaging with them in that way, taking turns doing things. Oh, now I'm going to put on my jacket. Can you put on your jacket? All right, we're ready to go. Are you ready to go? I'm ready to go. Going back and forth and engaging in that way, doing things together, and taking turns, or even like with the example of building blocks. Oh, wow, this is really tall. I wonder what will happen if you add 3 more, and counting 1, 2, 3 more. I'm going to add 2, 1, 2. Can you add 2? Coming down to their level and participating in what they're doing is also really helpful with the building their awareness of engagement with other people and the world around them. Because children naturally are just in their own little world. They just see what's right in front of them. So helping them realize that, that engagement is really helpful. So those are some of the things that I've done with my own kids. Just even going on nature walks. And I used to love to do that with my kids. We would go on nature walks and just describe everything that we see and everything that we're doing and all the animals and the trees and the leaves and everything that we observe in our environment, just describing it and talking about it.
Yeah.
That can be really, really powerful for them in building that vocabulary.
I think it also just makes things fun, right? Because rather than put your shoes on, let's keep walking, let's go. We're just finding joy in exploring and doing things together.
Yeah.
Like it's collaboration rather than domination. No.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
I knew at like the week it came out that it was going to change everything.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just went down the rabbit hole and I started looking at other AI tools. And then I started following different people on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. And my algorithm just, you know how that works, right?
Yes.
And
yes,
it just gets filled with it. Right now, all I get is AI everything.
Yeah.
From, on X, you know, YouTube, Facebook, it's all AI. So I just consume it. And then I started realizing, then I started using it in my actual school, right? I started looking at AI tools for teachers. And I'm like, this is amazing. It's cutting down on my grading, on my lesson planning. And I'm like, why is everyone not using this? So I started telling other teachers, I'm like, you know, you could use this, right? They're like, what? They were amazed. I'm like, you don't know this? And, you know, other teachers, I noticed they weren't using any AI tools. And I would share it with them and they would be in awe. And I'm like, oh, this could really help teachers. And then, you know, I started a YouTube channel.
Nice. Okay.
I have a YouTube channel called AI Classroom 2.0 where I just highlight AI tools for teachers.
So it'll definitely be in the show notes. You know what I have to say as an English teacher, that English teachers, some of them were very suspicious of it. Even when I said, oh, I'm going to use it for parallel prompts, like if I want them to write about an argument about something, right? I want the students to choose what they care about arguing about, right? What they want to persuade people about. But I also like to give them some type of model or something. So I'm like, okay, I used some models for them and they're like, they kind of look at me in a weird way. So that is, I mean, I don't know. That was like when it first came out. They're very like suspicious. And I'm like, well, yeah, I used to handwrite my things, but I already know how to write essays. So it's not like it's helpful for the kids, but they weren't, not everybody.
So I've given, so that leads into the fact that I started doing PDs, right?
Yeah.
At my school for teachers, because I became known as the AI guy, right? At my school. Then, I became I was named an ASU GSV AI innovator, which is they pick a handful of teachers from around the country. And so I got that honor and I spoke in San Diego. I got to speak in Cleveland a couple weeks ago about AI to the CSTA at the CSTA conference. I just got named as being a part of the California State AI group to create the framework for AI for the schools across the state. You know, I'm getting on different, so I'm known as like the AI guy, I guess you could say, right? In my district, in my school. And I get a lot of teachers who give me a lot of pushback. Number one thing is plagiarism. A lot of English teachers like, this is going to,
Yes.
But the way I look at it is this is where the world is headed.
It is.
And a lot of teachers, I'm kind of honestly shocked sometimes at what some teachers aren't aware of that you can do or what kids are doing and where the world is headed. And I tell them, I say, if you don't prepare these kids for what's about to happen, you're setting them up for failure. Because AI, I tell people this, like right now, college, this is a perfect example. College graduates right now have a worse unemployment than people that don't have a college degree for the first time ever. The unemployment for new college grads is higher than people that don't have a degree. And the reason is because new college grads typically get entry-level jobs. And AI is the best at entry level, right? And all these companies are using AI to do all the entry level, right? And so a lot of kids are going to college they don't realize that what they're going to college for, an AI can do it, right?
Yeah.
They don't have any skill sets, right? And so my biggest thing is just preparing schools, teachers, parents, like, and we'll talk about this later, like skill sets that kids need to learn in order to prepare for this AI world. Because I feel, this is me, I feel like AI, people say, oh, you're into the AI stuff. And what I look at it as, no, AI is the biggest innovation ever.
Yeah.
Not one of the biggest. People, like, I'm talking about, it's bigger than the cell phone, it's bigger than the internet, it's bigger than the Gutenberg press, it's as big as the wheel. Thousands of, like, it's literally, because when people understand the scope of the ripple effect that AI is going to change every aspect of life, right? People are like, I'm not into AI. Well, you're going to be forced to be into it because it's going to affect your life. It's going to affect your job. It's going to be in every app. It's going to literally affect your livelihood, right? Every sector of society. I don't care if you're a doctor. I don't care if you're a lawyer. I don't care if you're in real estate, if you're into marketing. I tell people that AI is affecting every sector. And so the schools tend to be last. Schools tend to be slow on the wagon, right? Very slow.
And the other thing about it is, while we're trying to keep them from AI, it's like they have access to it already. So it's not something that you can really keep them from. The best thing that we can do is show them how to use it responsibly, so they're not getting in trouble. They're not getting, failing out of their college class because they think that they can use AI just to replace their work, right? Like if they ask me for an essay on the Industrial Revolution, that I can just ask AI to do it and then turn it in. Now, some people still may be able to do that and make it undetected or whatever. But obviously, if my professor knows that I just turned it in and I didn't do any work on it, I'm going to be in trouble for that or whatever. So helping them to use it in a way that's more effective or like responsible is the best thing that we can do, rather than act like it doesn't exist,
Exactly. And, a lot of teachers try to, the AI detectors don't work.
Right. There's lots of different ones.
I tell people this all the time. And there's a million ways to get around that. And these kids are smart.
Yeah.
I can get around that easily. Most kids that are savvy, they know how to get around that. So teachers, because of AI, I tell teachers, first of all, if you teach English, never just give a kid an English assignment and say, go do it at home and come like that. That's not that whole framework. That's gone. You can't do that anymore.
Yes.
Right now, if you want them to learn, if you want them to write something, you must do it in class. But I tell teachers, especially like high school, you must assume they're using AI, right? So because they're using AI, tell them, okay, go create this with AI, come back to the class, and let's critique what the AI gave us. Let's look at the bias in it, right? Let's look at ways we can critique the AI, but you can still create a lesson from that, right? But assume they're using it because, and this is another thing too, this is why I get upset at teachers, because I'm like, I tell them, do you realize that everybody in the real world is using this? Everyone. Right. So we're telling our kids not to use it when jobs are going to expect them to know how to use it. It makes no sense, right? And because you have a...
Yeah. So we just have to change up.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been doing some teacher research on that and using it with different populations of students, like how to integrate it into the writing process. So you obviously, have a lot of expertise. What are those skills? You mentioned it earlier, that we need to really be helping them develop.
So one skill is all kids should know how to prompt. Kids need to understand prompting skills. It's a skill set. A lot of I tell people I can ask ChatGPT to create me something, but then someone who knows how to prompt and how to craft a prompt knows that I need to, like, for example, if I want ChatGPT to give me a lesson from my 5th grade science class, the first thing I'm going to say is, I'm going to give it a role. I'm going to say, act as a 25-year veteran 5th grade science teacher.
Okay.
And the AI will take on that role. You always got to give the AI a role. So it'll take on that role. You always have to give the AI, like, how do you want it produced? You want it in bullet points? You want it as a paragraph? Because it'll just assume. You always got to give the AI context. Okay, you're a teacher. It knows you're a teacher, but you're teaching inner city schools. Okay. You teach in a rural school. You got kids that are at grade level. You give it the context. You give it a role. You give it. So these are skills that kids need to understand, because, everybody can ask the ChatGPT or Claude or Google AI Studio, whatever. People who get the best results are those who know how to prompt. I taught a class this summer to kids, 2-week course. And that's the first, whenever I teach the courses on AI, the first day, all we do is prompting, because everything is prompting, whether you're prompting for large language models like a ChatGPT or art generators, or you're doing.
Okay. You got to prompt it correctly. Okay.
So there's video generators. It's all prompts. Everything is prompts. Coding, you got to prompt, right? I teach kids how to code with AI. It's all prompting. Okay. And so that's a skill though, right? And you have to learn how to do that. So that, I feel as though another skill that because of AI, because the AI is going to become smarter than any human, in about 4 years, it's projected that the AI will be smarter than the collective of all humans on Earth. Okay. Right? There's AI, then there's AGI, which is the next step. Then there's ASI.
All right, wait. What's you said the second one is
artificial superintelligence, right? When you get to the artificial general, so it's artificial general intelligence. When the AI is smarter than any human on Earth. Okay. It's not quite there yet, because it's almost there. It'll be there by next year. And then there's ASI. Okay. That's when it's not just smarter than any one human on Earth. It's smarter than the collective of all humans on Earth. Right? And that's going to happen in the next 4 to 5 years. So when that happens, like our whole concept of learning has to change, because the skills that are going to be needed, I tell parents what they're going to need to teach their kids. Kids are going to need to know how to be critical thinkers and to be creative. And the creativity part is extremely important, because if anyone, like right now, I can teach a 7-year-old literally to make a Pixar level cartoon quality. So if anyone can do that, I tell people this, well, if anyone could create an app, or if anyone can create a movie or a poem, or if any random person can create the best quality, what's going to separate? Creativity, right? So
they can't always read it though. And that's how I could see some of the stuff.
Read it? What do you mean? Like,
because, well, no, like, I'm still talking, I'm still talking from an English lens, right? But so like for a long time, kids have been plagiarizing, they'll just copy stuff off of the internet before AI, right? But it's like, but they can't reproduce it, obviously. Like a lot of times if they're not developing their actual skills and they're just having the AI do it or whatever, they can't reproduce it if I ask them to do it in class or whatever. And then also they can't even read that assignment sometimes, right? Like, so I'm like, oh, you wrote this report, go ahead and read it. And it's like, they're not able to a lot of times,
Well, like
they're skipping over words. Yeah.
That's why the type of assignments we give, okay, go create a podcast now, go create a book with art that reflects the text. Go, one simple thing you can do with kids is you can have AI give you 2 sides of a debate and have the kids in class or your kids dissect both opinions, both sides of that debate, right? You can have the AI, whatever it produces, you can have the kids, okay, where's the bias in this? Because that's another thing that I teach, is that AI is biased, and can a kid detect the bias? Because AI is trained on certain data, right? If I tell an art generator to create a person, the default is someone who's Caucasian by fault. That's the default, or the default with anything is, whatever the data set you gave it. So can kids see that's an assignment in of itself. Okay, can the kids see the bias in what the AI is producing right here? You tell it to write a report about whatever. And the assignment can be detect detect the bias in this.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much again for joining us on the Falling for Learning podcast. And Mr. Tarquinn Curry gave you all kinds of resources, your website, all of it's in the show notes. And make sure, again, you're doing something to give your kids the competitive advantage. Have a great week.
Thanks again for supporting the Falling for Learning podcast. New episodes go live every Saturday at 5 p.m. You can watch us on youtube.com at Falling for Learning or listen on all major podcast platforms such as Apple, Google, Audible, Spotify, and much more. For more resources, visit fallinginlovewithlearning.com. We really appreciate you. Have a wonderful week.